Welcome back to another session of our Winter SmartCom Summit. I'm Kevin Nethercott, the managing partner of the CPaaS Acceleration Alliance, and we have another excellent panel set up for our audience today. I'm really excited about this one. The past about 6 weeks, we've been doing 2 or 3 of these sessions each week, and you've heard a lot about the technology that's behind cloud communications. You've heard about a lot of the companies that are reselling these types of services. And today we wanted to put together this special group that's focused more on the end user and how the technology is being used. And I think they're going to be able to share some really interesting ROI types of facts and the impact that these new technologies can have in our communications. The title for our panel today is AI and Human Relationships. Unlikely allies. Too often, I think we hear of AI replacing positions out there. I think you're going to hear from our group today that it's actually enhancing relationships and growing the business and how your customers and your employees can work together. We're welcoming back Tom No. He did a kickoff session with us early this year, and he's brought a number of his friends along the way that we're going to have a really robust conversation around how we can help providers out there that are worried about the race to zero and what that means to their business, and how we're going to show that we can create some really high margin business for you and how you can take your communication services to market. I'll step aside for the length of the panel and then come back maybe for some Q&A and wrap up. So Tom, let me turn the time over to you and look forward to a robust discussion. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Well, thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with the group. You know, as I've gotten to know this group of people, these panelists, I've really come to understand on a really gut level what gets them up in the morning. And I've discovered that really at the core of every one of their missions is driving opportunity for human beings. And additionally, forming human relationships, really robust human relationships early in the cycle, and bringing expertise to bear is so essential to every one of these panelists. And so we felt like this would be a great group to bring together to answer the question that Kevin posed about using AI to really bolster and support those relationships. And so what I'd like to do is ask each one of our panelists in turn, just to help our audience understand where they saw an opportunity to amplify their core mission with the help of AI-based communication. So let me start by introducing Steve Messler here. He is an Olympic athlete, and among many other accomplishments, he won a gold medal in the 4-man bobsled event. This was in 2010, and if I'm not mistaken, Steve, that was the first gold medal for the United States since 1948.
You got it, Tom. It had been 62 years for us at that point.
That's incredible. And so he's taken that celebrity and he's turned it toward children. So his organization, Classroom Champions, is a nonprofit. He serves as a co-founder and the CEO. And you're going to hear more about what he does day to day. It just makes my heart sing. And he's also recently departed after serving as on the board of directors for the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee and supporting Team USA to meet their goals. So we're really excited to have you here, Steve.
I'm excited to be here.
So Steve, you've been able to harness the talents of dozens of Olympic athletes, just like you. What we want to do is have you help us understand what Classroom Champions does at scale, and also what you see as limiting factors in helping you achieve even greater scale.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a great question. And I mean, first and foremost, thank you for having me on, and thanks for alluding to, what you guys have done for our programs. What I'm about to talk about has been nothing short of incredible. So Classroom Champions is a nonprofit organization that works across North America, and some of our programs and curriculum are used across the world as well. In essence, we support schools who are looking for programmatic and curricular solutions to improving social, emotional skills, mental health, and academic outcomes in a proactive way. So we provide K-8 mentorship programs and curriculum that focuses on teaching students and teachers what we call the athlete mindset, which in essence is about helping improve students' understanding and their underlying skill base of goal setting, perseverance, critical thinking, decision-making, tenacity, teamwork, helping kids understand that being gritty, having perseverance isn't a personality trait, but rather they're skills that you can learn, and we can role model those things. And so we support thousands of schools with, actually, we've had hundreds of athletes involved over the years. We do that through curriculum and other programs, which have basically unlimited scale in those two. But our premier program, our Mentorship Plus program, where classrooms and schools are actually matched with currently competing Olympians, Paralympians, NCAA student and pro athletes, is where we've experienced our bottleneck. And we really realized this over the last few years, which was, if we were going to be able to reach the goals that we have, which are thousands of schools, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of students through our mentorship program, alongside our curricular programs, our mentorship programs actually connect those currently competing athletes, not the gray-haired has-beens like me, but the currently competing athletes, with kids, because we want those athletes to share the journey. And within that is a lot of asynchronous work, a lot of asynchronous lessons being shared back and forth. But the synchronous interactions is where the bottleneck was, because ultimately we're trying to match, at any one time, dozens of athletes with hundreds of classrooms, and the scheduling on that side for us was just going to be, not a manageable thing. So that's where we identified our bottleneck for scale on our mentorship, program, was really, how do we find some ways to automate the interactions between teachers who are busy, who have a lot of curveballs thrown at them on a regular basis, and these athletes who are traveling the world, who also don't necessarily have too much control over their schedules. And it was just taking too much time, for our staff time.
Well, that's quite a challenge there. And now that we've gotten to know your staff, we can see what a juggle it is every single season. And here we are with our toes right at the beginning of a brand new season.
Yeah. Well, and it's just been, it's been fantastic to see the differences for our team and how they are able to handle those things because of the work that we did. And I'm happy to jump into that now, Tom, but I also know you want to introduce the rest of our panelists, so maybe I can jump into that later. You let me know.
Well, let's go ahead and introduce Keith Gerson here. Keith is one of the best known leaders in the franchise industry. He's at FranConnect. He serves as their president of franchise operations. And their ERP system covers all aspects of franchising. And I just wanted to tee this up a little bit by talking about franchising in general. So this is not a franchising audience. And so for me, getting to know the industry helped me really understand that for some of these potential franchisees, starting a new franchise rises to the level of a life dream. It's a transformation in moving from being an employee at a business to owning their own destiny, and it's giving them freedom. And so I really admire everything that's being done in the franchising industry, and also have come to understand quite a bit more about some of the limiters across franchising as franchises try to grow. So Keith, you have this very, very broad perspective across hundreds of brands, different sizes of franchises, different verticals. Can you help us understand what are some of the most important limiters on a individual brand's ability to offer that opportunity, that life-changing opportunity to more people?
Thank you, Tom, and I appreciate being included here on the other panel. So our previous speaker is a tough act to follow. So I'm not a high achiever on that level for sure, but I appreciate the opportunity here. So first of all, franchising really is a business format model, and it knows no bounds in terms of the industry types. So many of the people that are attending here may very well be in industries that are also served by franchising. But sales and behavior, human behavior, and so a lot of the limiters we're finding are really artificial. The first one is that business owners often within franchising and other businesses don't often know the difference or are not necessarily tracking the leading indicators versus lagging indicators in sales. So I want to first start by saying that in franchising, franchise growth is the lifeblood of the business, because when you're selling and adding new franchises, that contributes royalties, if you will, to the franchisor. But in turn, the intellectual properties and the best practices that are imposed really help a franchisee have much greater likelihood of finding a success along the. So I want to start first of all on the sales side of the equation with franchisors attracting prospective franchisees. And by saying that there is a tendency when you start looking at the statistics here, that, and this again is probably going to be applicable to everybody, is very few leads that come in are actually deemed qualified leads, and chances are that many of the leads that are coming in at various times of the day and night. And what we're finding, for example, when it comes to scale business, you have a dedicated franchise sales manager, you might have a pre-qualifier, but what we're finding is the lion's share of and we're talking about KPIs that come in, only translate into about 7% of those leads actually ending up booking an initial appointment to talk with a sales representative. But what we're seeing is that you can really change those numbers by enacting, for example, AI-driven conversational chatbots, and we're seeing that convert to an average rate of about 23% of those that actually are textable leads that can ultimately become booked appointments. Additionally, we're also finding that many franchisors aren't making the additional of a mandatory field for cell phones as a requirement. And as a result, only about 30% of leads can actually be SMS texted. Now, that's why I say that these are self-limiters, because there's no reason that one can't make these changes in their system. It's just a matter of paying attention, again, to what's really important and what moves the needle. Another limiter is the fact that about 65% of all leads that are coming in after traditional business hours. And we have sales staff that are typically working the days, but this means that these are typically coming in the evenings, weekends, and holidays. So having a technology that has the ability to carry on an intelligent conversation with a prospect with the end goal of actually being able to book an appointment is really a big differentiator. And of course, finally, to make this work, one needs to have a CRM solution with a workflow capability. And that means if the workflows aren't there, then the smart bot can't be triggered based on the stage of the sales process. So these are all things that could absolutely be overcome by paying attention to the right things and embracing technology. And I think everybody on this call would agree that the open and read rates of text messaging can be significantly higher than traditional areas like email open rates. So I'm going to stop there so this can get a word in, guys. But again, all things that can be conquered with the right people in the room.
That's a great overview, Keith. Thanks so much. And next up, I'm going to introduce Mike Steed. He's the Chief Development Officer over at Synergy Home Care. And as I mentioned, this is a non-franchising audience. So to us geeks, development often means software development. And this is not at all what Mike does. So in franchising, the term development really refers to growth, driving growth, acquiring new franchise owners. And so just to talk a little bit about his business, all of my earlier remarks about life dreams really apply twice over in an industry like that. I've had some increasingly direct experience with elder care myself, and it's an industry that is really ready for transformation. And so it's inspiring to see what kind of work Synergy Home Care is doing. I also wanted to say that Mike is one of our most demanding customers. And so, Mike, you're a tiger when it comes to measuring performance of any sort of demand generation initiatives. And your team is super senior and high performing. So from your point of view, what are some factors that can limit the growth of an organization like yours? Love to learn all about it.
Oh, thanks so much, Tom. Well, hey, let me start off by talking a little bit about Synergy Home Care for those folks that are not in franchising and might not know what home care is. Synergy Home Care is the fourth largest home care franchise in the nation. We've been the fastest growing home care franchise for the last 3 years. We do attribute a great part of our success to Tom and his team for helping us adopt AI into our technology suite, and to Keith for the great work that Frank Connect does with their CRM. Non-medical home care provides services to families that need assistance. We serve all age groups. Some of our competitors only serve seniors, but we actually serve all age groups. We provide companionship care. We provide personal care, memory care, homemaker care, and we've added recently a hospital to home program. So we're really trying to serve all of the needs for non-medical home care that may arise in the home. And the home has become the preferred environment. As we all age, we don't want to go into a foreign landscape. We want to stay where things are familiar and where we're comfortable. So home care has really, really been growing recently. My team's job is actually talent acquisition. Our job is to find the next wonderful person that wants to make this their life's work. And so we try to deploy a variety of communication processes and strategies to make sure that we are talking to people about the things that matter to them in the right frequency, at the right pace. And so we use a lot of different techniques, from automated email campaigns. We use an automated scheduling technology through Lumen. We utilize phone. I would use smoke signals if I thought it would help us. We just try to speak to the inquiring entrepreneur in the modality that is most favorable to them, and at the time that they prefer, and at the cadence that they prefer. But most importantly, creating a relationship and having a robust conversation to them that's going to be meaningful. For many people, buying a franchise is their dream come true, to own their own business. And when you're getting into something this important, it's also the ability to make a good living while you're helping people in your community. So it really serves all of those needs. And it's our job to make sure people are informed about the opportunity. What does it entail? Can they do it? Should they do it? Will we help them? I mean, those are the big questions we're trying to solve. But the most important thing is that initial ability to start a conversation with someone at the moment that they have an interest. And so we do agree with what Keith said earlier, that speed to lead is important. There is a moment in time in everyone's life when they are looking for that next thing. And if that next thing is going to be home care, we need to answer the call when it comes in, even if that's midnight on Sunday morning. It doesn't matter. We have the technology in place to start that conversation now. And so I just want to thank you for having me on this panel. I love the technology. I love the data. Sorry that I am a little bit of a tiger in the experience, Tom, but we really enjoy the tool, and we have enjoyed being part of watching this tool grow, and we love it. It's changed the outcome for us, and we are talking to more people than ever right now in our franchise system. So we appreciate it very much.
Oh, that's fantastic, Mike. And before we go to a second round of questions here, I just wanted to ask you a follow-on question here. Just for a splash of color, I was actually pretty astounded to learn that most people who go into home care, it's certainly not a majority that come from healthcare. They come from a variety of other industries. And so I was curious about having you paint a picture of the kinds of people who come to you and what you're bridging them to as you have your initial conversations with them.
Yeah, that's a great question. So really, it's all about communicating to someone in the language that they're interested in learning in. Some folks are coming to us after a long career in another industry. Could be any industry, not healthcare. And so the learning curve for a person that has maybe been a leader in another industry is really having them understand what home care does. How does it work? What kind of labor do I need to do this? What kind of marketing do I need to do this? What kind of systems will I have to deploy to be able to do this? On the other hand, you have folks that are healthcare professionals. They've been a registered nurse for 25 years. They are retiring from that profession. They want to own their own business and continue to serve their communities. They have no learning curve when it comes to healthcare, but they've never run a business before. Maybe they've never led a team before. And so what we have to do in the development process is to understand where the skill sets are for those folks early on. We use automation for that as well. We have them fill out some inquiry pieces along the way, and we start to learn from them. What are they all about? Where are their strengths? Where are their fear factors? And then we deploy the human being into it. And so we have a thing called validation, which is where someone who's looking to invest into the business can talk to other folks that already own an agency. And we try to set them up with folks that have had a similar path. If I have been a medical device salesperson in my past, but I've never owned my own business, or I've never really worked in the hospital or home care setting or healthcare setting, we're going to put you in touch with 3 or 4 people that had the same career that you had before they bought their agency. Same thing for someone that owned an insurance business before. Same thing for someone that worked in IT before. We're going to find your group and set you up to talk to them. So we try to just customize everything in the communication cycle so that we are speaking to folks in the language that they want to be spoken in, and filling the gaps for them in those places that are fear factors. And, buying a business is just like buying a house. You want to buy the right one. And so we have to make sure that we do everything we can to give them all the information that they need, not so that they'll buy a franchise, but so that they're doing the right thing for their family, for their future. That's the most important thing.
That's really, really good to understand. Well, let me ask all the panelists here in the same order, just the same question. It's, our audience here has professionals who are primarily involved in the telecom industry and may have limited understanding or limited clarity and visibility into your style of business. So what I'm going to ask you to do is help them connect the dots into how automatically driven communication is helping you on a day-to-day basis in your organization. So let's go ahead and start with Steve.
Well, that's not Steve. There we go. There's Steve.
Yeah.
And I hear you. I'll make one comment about the development comment, Tom, that you guys were talking about earlier. Yeah, like we have web development, we have fund development, because no one likes to use the F word in nonprofit world, which is fundraising, not what you were thinking there. And then we have curriculum development. So the word development is definitely overused around my shop. Yeah, Tom, for us at Classroom Champions, again, like as I mentioned earlier, the bottleneck was it occurred to us and realized that as we were growing, the bottleneck really was ultimately these 2 times of the year where we get to connect kids and their Olympian, their Paralympian, their pro athlete, as these athletes are training and they're following their journey along. And again, everything else is synchronous, both synchronous video lessons about these topics, athletes kind of giving kids opening the black box up to like how these amazing people doing these amazing things. Athletes like Alana Myers-Taylor, who's, was Alana like a 4 or 5 time Olympian at this point, has won 5 or 6 Olympic medals in the sport of bobsled, and did it this past year at the Olympics in China in 2022 with her, with her 2-year-old special needs kid, son, Nico, who like Alana got COVID as soon as she landed in China. And she had that, taken away. She had, her baby taken away from her in China right before the Olympics. Helping kids. How do you have that kind of mindset? How do you go through that and then still perform on the world stage? And she went out and won 2 medals. So getting kids the opportunity to then, we create these heroes through asynchronous. We build this up in these kids' minds. We make celebrities out of these people that they may not have known before, and then create this parasocial relationship there. And then we have an actual in their time where these kids can actually interact with these people. And it's a big deal for the kids. It cements the mentorship, the virtual mentorship, the scaled mentorship part of the system. But ultimately, like as I mentioned earlier, it's messy. People's schedules are changing and shifting, and again, not too different from the sales perspective. And we discovered Lumen because my wife got a text message as she was looking to schedule something with a vendor, and she noticed Lumen and she sent it over to me. Said, "I think this might be something that you guys can look into." And then we gave you a call, Tom, to see if you could help us. But ultimately, what we've seen the technology do for us is kind of the most important thing, which is we cleared it so we're not depending upon lag times in our people responding, kind of as the guys were talking about on the same side and their sales side, which was the system was able to communicate with teachers, communicate with athletes, sync them together, send them the Zoom links, send them the scheduling, have an option for them to make changes that they would need to if something came up. Sometimes these athletes are in Europe and the weather changes, so their training gets pushed. So all of a sudden, this time that they've dedicated to hundreds of kids is now removed, and they have to, push that. Again, it's good for kids to learn. Life changes, the athlete will show up. But what it did for us, we saw that we had our completion rate of those live chats went up by 15%, which is a really big deal. That's thousands of more kids getting to have those opportunities in a way that was insurmountable before. And then on the same side, from our perspective, our people hours went down by 40%. So the amount of just administrative back and forthing went down by 40%, which then means those people are then able to retask and support athletes in different ways on the athlete side. We're able to support teachers with curriculum and program implementation on that side. So the impact for us was multifold. Less people, more connections happening. That is the mission of the organization, why people donate and sponsor, and why schools purchase and bring Classroom Champions in to support their schools. But then the ripple effects meant that those people were then retasked to be able to do more things to improve programming. So for us, the impact was really quick. And this was just the pilot that we ran this fall. So our team is really excited to see what that's going to move, how that's going to move the needle moving forward.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. It just sounds like it's a lot of it's about liberating your staff from a lot of the administrivia and just helping them focus on.
And that too, and to be honest, the system was able to be more direct, more direct and more specific than need be. Sometimes you don't need to have some of the pleasantries that are. We work in a nonprofit. Our people are empaths. We have teachers, educators who have dedicated their lives to these things, and sometimes that takes them more. It literally, quite literally, like hurts their heart when these things don't happen. They have to be delayed. It removes them from that kind of stress and strain where they couldn't control it. It's nothing that they would be able to control, yet they would put it on themselves. So it's really done a lot for us in that way.
Thanks, Steve. Let's go to Keith.
Tom, thanks for the question. What I'd like to talk about is the purpose of business, and which, in the words of Peter Drucker, is basically the making and keeping of customers. And oftentimes we joke with our limited marketing budgets, et cetera, that that 50% of marketing works. The problem is we don't know which 50%. But the data tells us that in many ways we really do. And I think that the issue sometimes is in the sales funnel, not on top of it. Now, if the cost of a qualified lead is $110 and the average franchise budget is $250,000 to generate franchise sales leads, it's imperative that we treat those like gold, because they really are at the end of the day. But the fact is, according to our research, of leads are never contacted, or they're given up on after only 3 attempts to connect. And that's the beauty of using technology to really augment and support the sales process. And so we're finding that artificial intelligence can actually do all of the heavy lifting. Everything is automated. So when a prospect comes in, they're reached out to and engaged with almost instantaneously, which is important because, as Steve mentioned, speed to the lead is imperative. In fact, we found that, and I'm throwing out a lot of data, but this one is going to be ballpark 52% we're finding of all the leads in our database, according to last year, were those that were contacted and engaged with in 4 hours or less. And the more time it takes to respond to the lead, the less likely it's going to actually translate into becoming a customer or a sale. So the artificial intelligence actually is doing all the initial work. The moment a lead comes in, the AI is responding to that individual in a very human-like fashion with natural English communications and the ability to be able to communicate in thoughtful, easy to understand sentences. And so at the end of the day, the technology is basically following up with SMS text messaging, thanking, nurturing them, getting them to commit to an appointment, getting them to be reminded of the appointment the day before and an hour before. And if somebody doesn't show up, that's the only time that the salesperson is having to do an effort here, which is just to market in the sales CRM that it was a no-show. And then the technology will go ahead and send out, hey, I'm sorry we missed you. You weren't able to make the call. That's okay. Let's get you rescheduled again. So it's a beautiful thing now that salespeople are doing less chasing and they're doing more selling. I think that's something that everybody.
That's great. Thanks, Keith. I think we got past the audio dropout there, so we'll just splice it together in post. Well, thanks so much, Keith, for helping us understand that. Why don't we turn to Mike here?
Thank you, Tom. So we take a little bit of a different approach at Synergy. I have a team of 5 franchise development professionals, and because home care has a lot of legal nuances in different states, our team has to be knowledgeable in the states that they're serving. So we've actually regionalized it into 5 regions. When we first talked to Tom and decided we were going to test using an AI bot to help us, my thought was that we would have one more person on the team, and that would be the AI bot that would be helping us schedule. But in fact, what has happened is the AI bot sits next to all 5 people. So each person has the AI bot helping them to get in contact with the folks that want to speak with them. My team receives on average 180 inquiries a month. That makes for a very busy job. They are tasked with reaching out to all of those folks, like Keith said, not 3 times, but 6 times. But the AI bot does that so much more efficiently. Imagine your day is filled with reaching out to 10 people that you haven't talked to yet, but then you've gotten appointments with 3 other people that you have scheduled webinars with. One of the most disruptive things that can happen is one of those 10 people answer and you weren't planning on spending a half an hour with them. Having a scheduled call that the bot has helped us achieve, or rather we've done that through a human contact, is very important to us, because the quality of that communication is way more important than the quantity of communication. And so what we are trying to do is have thoughtful, planned, scheduled events, rather it is the AI bot scheduling it, or rather we have reached out and scheduled it on our own. I do want to give you a little bit of data. Before we engaged with the AI bot, we were a little bit ahead of the curve that Keith shared with you, and we were talking to 14% of the people that inquired. We would end up having a meeting with 14%. Last month, with the help of the AI bot, we talked to 30% of the people that inquired. That's very different. And all of the folks on my staff would say to you, they're really enjoying having the time back to have those thoughtful conversations versus trying to chase down people that inquired and then they've never actually connected with. So the quality of their jobs is better. Everything in this world really comes down to people. And when you have happy people doing their jobs and enjoying it with the assistance of a little bit of technology, that goes a very, very long way. So we're really pleased with it. And it's changed the playing field for us. We had a record year last year. We're going to beat that number this year. And a lot of that is due to having this technology helping us out. So really, really love it. That's all I can say about it. Very happy.
Mike, I'm wondering if Steve will loan you his gold medal. That's a gold medal performance right there.
Well, I do have all the gray hair that he mentioned, so I am in the lead on that.
All right, here we go.
We might get
Oh,
it
here
out.
we go.
Yeah, we'll give you just a little like around, just bend over a little bit.
See.
There you go. There's the,
Awesome.
there's the Vancouver one for you guys.
That's
Wonderful.
really
Wonderful.
beautiful.
Thank
That's
you.
real deal.
Well, why don't we invite Kevin back to get his perspective, and then we'll go to a little bit of Q&A. So, Kevin, you've played an industry-leading role here in the communication platform space. And since most of your experience comes from that space, we'd love to have you connect the dots for folks and help them understand. Kick myself out. Yeah.
Kick yourself back.
I'm back.
Yeah. You want me to rewind and ask the question? Okay.
Yep.
Hey, Kevin. So, we'd like to invite Kevin back to get his perspective, and then we'll go to some Q&A. So, Kevin, you've played an industry-leading role in the communication platform space. And so you're unique among this group in that you really understand their priorities and some of their backgrounds and talents. Since much of our audience comes from that space, would you help connect the dots for them to understand what some of today's learnings would mean for them in their roles?
Sure. I think much of our audience will recognize that the theme of our SmartCom Summit has been around smart connections. And so really for both service providers as well as technology providers, it's really about customer experience and customer engagement. And so I really appreciate the conversation that you all have had today, because essentially that's what you're describing, is how to better engage customers or prospects where they are, and then bringing them into a conversation that's very natural and easy for them to participate. And so I think this is the exciting part of this advanced technology, is it actually makes life easier for us as end users. And so if you take that part of it along with the math that y'all have been sharing around this dramatic increase in efficiencies and ROI and the different figures that you shared, this is super impactful for every business that's out there. I think franchising is a really interesting way to approach this, because you really represent Main Street. We expect, Johnson & Johnson and Ford Motors and others to have, huge development houses that can build all of this. But what you're describing is what, a team of maybe 2 to 10 people on Main Street can have access to this same type of technology. And that's where we expect to see the biggest growth for our industry, is small businesses adapting this. But it takes this type of easy experience and these types of use cases to drive that. In fact, that was one of the questions that came in, is how easy is this to deploy? So Steve, when you talked with Tom and then went to implement this, how long did it take you to get this up and running and being able to use it?
It's a good question. I'm not sure if I am probably the best use case for Tom per se, considering our use case was like materially different than what they were doing. And yet, honestly, from our perspective, it probably took about the same amount of setup time that it was taking to use the Calendly's and the other things that we were setting up and then reaching out to the teachers and the athletes to get their times in that way. So from our perspective, the setup time for the first pilot to work with Tom's team to, in essence, create a new flow. Tom, you'll certainly have better language than I on that one. From our perspective on that side, it was about the same amount of setup time. And then the 40% drop in people hours is where the actual side took place. I mean, Tom, I don't know, what would be the difference between the way that we work together versus
Classroom Champions? You guys have such an interesting setup, because you have 50 athletes who are coordinating with around 800 different classrooms. And so there was a huge chicken egg problem. Who makes the first move? Where does the machine step in and help? And so it really is a very unique situation. But I think we were able to figure out a way to work together with your CRM system to kick all of it off.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd like to tag on to that and say that within the franchising systems that we've worked with, I've been very impressed because from a marketing perspective, if we were working on SEO or other campaigns, sometimes it takes literally months, for it to be kind of reclassified and, to start showing up. But we're finding that the average deployment, we've been fortunate because of scalability and bandwidth that you've been able to get the job done in a matter of days, like 10 days to 2 weeks. But to see the results come in instantaneously, there's no lag time. There's no need, just like with SEO, to wait for it to do its thing and repopulate. So very impressive.
So Mike, as a follow-on to that, then, I mean, did you need special IT department to implement this, or was this something that you and your business development team were able to just work with Lumen and implement yourselves?
Yeah, we were able to work with Lumen and with Fran Connect. I love data, so we spent about a month working with Lumen to figure out how this would apply to our model, and then we spent 3 months testing it because I like data and I wanted to see how it worked. And then we deployed it across our entire team. I thought that would be the hard part, would be the human part, to have the bot doing scheduling for me. No, I mean, how could that be? 2 weeks later, everyone on the team fell in love with the bot. They were waking up Monday mornings after taking the weekend off, which they didn't always do. And they had scheduled appointments on their calendar. What could be better than that?
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
And that's why I go back to having the happy people is the best outcome of all of this, because they're enjoying their jobs better and they're spending more quality time talking to people versus chasing people. Really,
that's great. That's great. So, Tom, another question that we have is, what's the commercial model here? How does this work from a business perspective?
Well, we on our side, we charge per appointment, and then we have subscription levels that allow a customer to, if you like, pay for a block. So it's like a committed use discount that you would see in the cloud space. And so our largest customers have the biggest committed use, and so biggest volume discounts. And in terms of margin, you're taking a text that the price points there are, as you mentioned, because of the race to zero, are decreasing all the time. But the value per text is up in the large fractions of a dollar realm, or sometimes multiple dollars.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know that we've got an experience in the past where for a text message is less than a penny, right? So if I'm a service provider sending a text message, I might make half a penny on that message that goes through. And I think with the bot involved, maybe it's 20 to 30 text messages back and forth. So I made a nickel. I'm really excited. But if I was able to then bring in this type of technology, I mean, people are paying what, $10, $20, $50 per sales lead or appointment that's made. And if there's some type of, markup on that or revenue share associated with that, then that would make a lot of sense that as somebody, reselling or working with the technology clearly would have a much better value proposition on the same usage across their network. So I think that's really powerful. And probably a really good place to wrap up here. Once again, really appreciate everyone's time and joining us. This has been a bit of a unique conversation, but I think one that's very timely because it does really focus in on the smart communications and connections that companies are looking to make. And you've proven that if you can, deliver this to a small business on Main Street and they can have this kind of impact on their business, everyone should really be looking at this type of technology and how they can implement that moving forward. So once again, thank you for your time and look forward to catching up in another session sometime soon.
Thanks so much, Kevin.
All right.
And thanks
Appreciate it, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.